Jason Laumb, are you on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jason, how are things at EERC today?
Hey, they're going great as always, Ron, and I appreciate the time on the show today.
Hey, Jason, you are part of an incredible group at EERC, and one of the things that you're the principal engineer at the coal utilization lead group, and we had a great discussion earlier with a Minnesota state legislator who had been up at the Great Plains Synfuels plant and been to the Coal Creek Station and Fall Creek Mine. And what are some of the things that you're working at in terms of how do you really engineer the best out of a piece of coal going forward?
Well, some of the things that we're looking at, Ron, is, what does a power plant of the future look like? Is it going to look like the power plants that we have on the landscape right now? In North Dakota, we have an aging fleet of power plants. A lot of them were built in the 70s and in the 80s, early 80s. Spiritwood, of course, coming online here a little bit later. Well, what does that plant look like? Does it look like, the Coal Creek Station? Probably not. Does it look like the Great Plains Synfuels plant? Now, they don't produce power, but they produce a lot of other things. And the reality is, and what I really think it's going to look like is a combination of the two. Looking at integrating a power cycle with some other technologies that create products, and having electricity is a byproduct of the power plant of the future. There's quite a few reasons why that might be, and one of them is to create grid stability.
So, Jason, as you look at this, and you've got projects at EERC, how do you? What's the time frame for moving into this new look, as you talk about in CO2, and where do you see that's going to take us in the future?
Well, we really need to start getting some answers, right now. I mean, especially with carbon dioxide, the plant of the future has to have a plan for carbon dioxide, and there are some larger carbon dioxide capture projects that have moved forward in our commercial projects right now, and there's others that folks are looking at. So I think you start with your plan for CO2. You look at other supporting technologies that can be turned on and off as that plant needs to cycle, because at the end of the day, everyone wants reliable power. Not just reliable power, they want it efficient, they want it cheap, and they want it clean. Because if we can't put power on the grid when we need it, your world gets turned upside down. I'll give you an example. Just this week here in Grand Forks, I was out to lunch with some coworkers, and the power went off at the restaurant we were at. Now, if you didn't have cash in your hand, you couldn't pay your bill. And luckily, one of my coworkers had cash, or I was going to be doing dishes at the restaurant, to pay my bill, and I had to get back to work. So having all of those things with your power source are going to be really important moving forward. It's an easy thing to say, but, as you had mentioned, you need to start working on it. And when is the time? The time is really now to start chipping away at this.
Well, that's a great example. And when you said your power went out at the restaurant, I was thinking that your food didn't come or the lights went out and it got dark, and yet something so systematic and functional as just paying your bill electronically is something we just take those things so for granted. And it's become much more than just the lights and the heat and those components of our life. It's really it really does matter, as the name of this show is Energy Matters. So Jason, where are we at in terms of energy storage? I think that's one of the big issues and one of the big discussions going forward.
Energy storage is the holy grail of energy technologies. I mean, if you can come up with a way to efficiently store energy and have it available to the grid, at a moment's notice, and a moment's notice for the grid, is probably a few minutes notice to get the energy dispatched. And there's no perfect technology right now. There's some battery storage options, but to be able to take and store 500 megawatts of energy, I can't even fathom what that sort of battery would even look like. There's other technologies that people are looking at, like just letting the electrons just cycle around the wires, and just kind of like pumping water around in a big circle. But that has a capacity as well. That will fill up, that type of technology. One of the things we're looking at the EERC is making something. Maybe you can make a chemical or a product that you can use to store the energy, and then when it comes time to put the energy back on the grid, you use that product in some way that creates the power. Now, every time you go through a conversion, converting the coal or gas to heat to power to something else, you lose a little bit of efficiency. So that's one of the big challenges. You can do it, but it costs you efficiency points. So right now we're still really looking at what sort of technologies are out there, what's new, what's on the horizon.
Well, Jason, I can't applaud you and the folks at EERC enough for really all that you do in terms of making North Dakota an energy leader in not only our state but in the world, and the incredible wealth of knowledge that the team at EERC carries is a great hidden gem of North Dakota, I tell you. And I know that we consider you guys really the brain trust of North Dakota's energy industry. So I think our having you guys in the mix here is critically important. So thanks for joining us today, and we will be right back after these messages.